Hello everybody and welcome to this webinar today. We're going to be talking about Oracle Cloud WMS. We've got today the Very Group, a UK retailer, coming to share their experience implementing and using Oracle Cloud WMS. First off, I'm actually very excited to introduce Dominic Reagan, as Senior Director for EMEA Logistics Applications at Oracle. He's going to talk us through some of the challenges, some of the trends that we're seeing in warehousing today. Over to you, Dominic.
Thank you very much, Chris, and let me add my welcome to everyone today. As Chris mentioned, what I want to do is to start off talking about some of the challenges and trends we're seeing in the warehousing market. Clearly, again, as Oracle, we talk to a large variety of customers right across the region, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And it's interesting to look at those challenges, and I've tried to summarize them on this slide. Really, that what we're hearing about is warehousing now has moved from being very much a backroom subject to something that's being discussed in the boardroom. It's become very public that, say, warehousing space is under quite a lot of constraint. Companies are struggling to find the warehouses that they need. And then some of these warehouses are only there temporarily. They're perhaps brought up for a particular peak season and then shut down again. And so that's really why warehousing has moved from being something that just happened in an organization to something that's really of a concern to the boardroom. Because if companies don't get their supply chains right, and inventory is clearly key to, say, what happens within a supply chain, then it becomes very public very quickly. And let's say what we then find is that not just the public notice by lack of product on the shelves, but also that investors notice that supply chains aren't running as efficiently as they could be. So yeah, let me just talk about a few, say, trends that we're seeing. Firstly, of course, there's been a big shift in consumer behavior, particularly in the retail sector. That's something that happened during lockdown, during the COVID pandemic, but it's carried on afterwards. So we've seen that big shift online. And of course, customers who buy online, they expect inventory to be readily available. They expect almost immediate delivery, and they expect to be able to return products if for any reason they're not happy with them. That then ties into companies having to ensure that they have resilient and agile supply chains. And so when you're holding inventory right across your supply chain, it's important that you can manage that inventory effectively. And that needs more than just a spreadsheet. It needs a warehouse management system. So say companies are then having to look on standardizing a warehousing system right across their warehousing real estate, but they also want a warehousing system that changes with the times as the demands on their business change. That's also why companies are looking for efficient logistics. There's still a very strong focus on controlling cost. And so companies have to make sure that they're able to fulfill efficiently, but also then to perhaps receive returns back and process those effectively as well. At the same time, companies are facing a challenge because of constraints in terms of the labor force. People simply don't want to work in a warehouse. It's not seen as something attractive for people to do. So companies struggle to attract and retain staff. That also means they need to be able to train them quickly, get people who work in a warehouse effective almost immediately. But again, what we're also seeing is an increase in the role of automation in the warehouse. In the past, automation was there to replace expensive resource. These days, automation is used just to replace resource that companies are struggling to get hold of in the first place. Now, companies running these warehouses are building up a huge amount of data. And then they're trying to see how they can make the best use of that data and drive more value from it. So we're seeing the emergence in the warehousing sector of things like artificial intelligence and machine learning, perhaps to predict how quickly you can fulfill an order, or being able to look at maybe where products should be located in the warehouse, and say really using data to drive more value within the warehousing operation. Last, but perhaps most important, is that role of sustainability. It's rare these days we see companies who do not have sustainability at the core of their corporate agenda. Now, what does that mean in warehousing terms? It means about reducing waste and reducing obsolescence, but also making sure that warehouses run as effectively as possible. So why are companies struggling in terms of their warehousing operation? Well, again, I've tried to summarize those points here. First of all, a lot of companies still really suffer from a lack of visibility into where their inventory is held, and also a lack of visibility into what's going on inside their warehousing operations. Very often what happens in warehousing is not coordinated across the rest of the business. If you imagine these days how important it is to understand your inventory when it comes to things like customer experience, or also dealing with your suppliers. And to say warehousing can't just survive in a silo. But also companies suffer from perhaps a lack of investment in many areas in terms of supply chain, and warehousing is no different. So very often companies are still using warehousing systems that perhaps were put in the first wave of WMS, which took place perhaps 20, 15 years ago. These days, companies expect more from a warehousing system. It has to be open, has to be integratable, and it has to be used right across their real estate from very small, almost sort of inventory holding locations up to big automated distribution centers. So what's Oracle's role in the warehousing sector? Well, at Oracle, we have what we call our Cloud WMS. It's a warehousing system written entirely for the cloud. It is what I would call a web native warehousing application. And that's important because companies are looking to put warehousing systems into warehouses large and small, and they don't want to find themselves constrained perhaps by the cost of deployment. So what is it about Oracle Cloud WMS that makes it attractive? Well, first of all, I say it is a web native system, so people just need a browser to access it, or perhaps go in through a mobile device. Means you have to have a very sort of intuitive user interface, something that people can use on their mobile phones if that's the device they're using in the warehouse. So it also has to have things like embedded AI and machine learning to drive value from that data, and to be able to say to the people in the warehouse to predict how long it's going to take to fulfill an order, because fulfillment is everything these days. So it has to be open and integrated to deal with all the types of automation that we're seeing, whether that's high bay storage and retrieval systems, conveyors, sortations, all the way through to robotics. Also, it has embedded analytics that lets the warehouse operatives identify perhaps trends or changes that are happening within the warehouse. And again, identifying those early is key to efficient operations. So what is it that differentiates Oracle Cloud WMS from other players in the market? Well, of course, it has best-in-class capabilities that covers the entire warehousing requirements, all the way through from making appointments to receiving, put away, replenishment, picking, shipping, and dispatch. It's also, because it's cloud, it's very rapidly deployable, very quick to bring up a new warehouse. Say whether that's a small warehouse that's just holding small amounts of inventory, all the way through to big automated distribution centers. Now, everything happens within one database, which means that companies automatically get that single view of inventory. They can see what's happening with their products right across their operations. Again, being cloud, it means it's very scalable. So if we think about how many retailers work, they have peak periods, perhaps for back to school, or it could be for Christmas, or other holidays. And a warehousing system needs to be able to scale very rapidly for those types of peaks, where you might see 3, 4, 500% or more increases in the number of orders that you have to handle. Again, those type of systems need to be very, very scalable very quickly. Also important for many of our customers is the fact that Oracle Cloud WMS, it's always available and it's always current. Now, what do I mean by that? It means that companies can't afford any downtime on their warehousing systems. Now, we deliver 4 updates a year for Oracle Cloud WMS. So customers are always on the latest code and always have access to the latest enhancements. But it also means that when those updates are delivered, downtime is kept to an absolute minimum. So then looking at the future, what can we say about warehouses and what will they require? Well, again, I've tried to summarize that on this slide. So visibility and having a single view of inventory right across the warehousing operations. Predictability, being able to say perhaps when you'll be able to fulfill an order and get it shipped out of the door. Of course, warehousing will have to be efficient, have to make use of automation where the business case exists. And they have to be agile, to be able to cater for warehouses large and small. Have to be resilient and available all the time. For customers who are operating around the world, there is no good time to take a warehousing system down to deliver an update. Has to be transparent and provide information about what's going on, not just within the warehousing operation, but to the wider corporate business processes as well. And of course, any warehouse of the future will have to be sustainable. It will have to be able to deliver a lower carbon footprint for companies who are looking to improve the sustainability of their operations. So just to summarize, a warehouse of the future is going to be providing the groundwork for what we would call perfect deliveries, being able to deliver the product on time, in full, to the customer when they require it. The warehouse of the future will have to be able to support and adapt to changes within the supply chains. We've seen a lot of those over the last 2 or 3 years, but supply chain disruption is endemic. So warehouses will have to be able to adapt for the future. Warehouses will have to be available anytime, anywhere. and they'll have to be able to support operations 24/7 by 365. Finally, warehouses will have to be able to adapt to constant innovation with new capabilities, enhancements, and functionality being available, and companies not being able to afford not to be able to access that functionality because they're on an older version of the system. Hopefully, this has given you a bit of an idea as to the trends that we're seeing taking place within the warehousing sector and how we see things going forwards.
So Dominic, you talked a bit at the beginning about warehouse availability, about the lack of that and the need for companies, obviously, in this kind of in this industry where you need next day, same day delivery to be precise, to be accurate. Do you see that driving a trend towards insourcing, to companies being more in control of their warehouse operations?
Well, certainly I think companies are sort of insourcing the control. It doesn't necessarily mean they're insourcing the manpower. And as you said, I think that partly reflects the fact that companies are having to change, if you like, what constitutes a warehouse. So in the old days, it was fairly obvious. You built a new shed by the side of a motorway, you put a system in to run it. But these days, say companies are holding inventory in all sorts of locations, from the back rooms of retail operations to vending machines to big national distribution centers. And I say what companies really want is they want control of the visibility of that inventory, and to be able to determine what happens with that inventory. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they'll, insource all of the operations themselves. They may still have their 3PLs, 4PLs, their logistics service providers running the warehouses for them. Yep. But they'll want them to use, if you like, their system to ensure that they can retain that visibility and control.
Thinking particularly in the retail space, customers like Very, obviously you mentioned in the presentation, seasonal peaks, Christmas, very big deal to Very Group as a retailer. Within that period, their warehouse capacity, the number of people running around significantly jumps. Can you tell me a bit about how the Oracle WMS helps to support that?
Yeah, certainly, Chris. As you say, what we see with a lot of our customers, particularly in the retail sector, is that they have these peak periods, and they'll be pulling in perhaps temporary or seasonal workers to help cope with that peak. And with those type of warehouse operatives, it's clearly very important you can get them up and running as quickly as possible. In the past, companies using perhaps older ways of working would take them 4 or 5 hours to get a new picker up and online and effective. What we found with Cloud WMS, because of that sort of intuitive UI, because of the use of the mobile application, which again very often is run on a mobile phone, rather than sort of the dedicated type of RF terminals we saw in the past, means you can get those workers very productive very quickly. We've also seen it with things like the adoption of voice picking, where having a headset and relaying the instructions back and forth to a picker through the headset means that they become very productive very quickly. And so I think also because we're constantly delivering innovation in Cloud WMS, particularly in terms of the user interface and user experience. Again, it just means that workers should hopefully find the system very easy to use, very intuitive, and be able to become sort of productive very quickly.
Thanks, Dominic. And I know Oracle are very proud of the Redwood user experience and the UI that flows through a lot of the Oracle systems now. I think that likely helps when people are coming fresh to the system, thinking about these seasonal workers. Some may have experience, some may be brand new. As you say, being able to work on a mobile is more friendly. It's more of an experience people are used to. But certainly I think that user interface, Gartner referenced as one of the key differentiators for Oracle, and certainly supports that journey, I think.
Yeah, again, I think providing that sort of consistent user experience is important, and providing a UI, say, that people find intuitive. It's no different than other applications they might use in their, whether that's in their private or in their sort of personal lives. Being able to do things like easily search for information, say having the use of graphics on the screen, all of those type of things. They really make an application like a WMS much more approachable, much more efficient.
Absolutely. And one other question from me. You mentioned around warehousing, it's moved from these big static buildings that used to be on the side of the M25 that everybody's familiar with to a much more distributed, you're looking at inventory in different places. How does the Oracle Cloud WMS support that inventory everywhere?
I think primarily for the fact that, say, it is very, very rapidly deployable. There's no hardware to deploy on site. which means that you can bring a warehouse up and running very quickly. And I say a lot of these sort of the new style of warehouses that we're seeing are perhaps only temporary, perhaps they're for peak periods only. Or they might just be very small locations. We have customers who use Cloud WMS to manage what the inventory that sits in vending machines, or they say to control the inventory on the back store of a retail operation. Never would have been economic to deploy a classic WMS into those type of operations because of the need for hardware, because of the need for a big implementation on site, and then to go back out and update the software perhaps every 2 or 3 years. With a cloud WMS, customers are always on the latest release, always have the latest enhancements, can bring a warehouse up and running very quickly, and in some cases shut it down very quickly at the end of the peak period. It's those type of things that improve the flexibility of a cloud WMS and make it much more economically viable to deploy into a whole range of different warehousing styles and operations.
Absolutely. And being a cloud native WMS, that ease of deployment, scalability, certainly built into the structure of the product, built into the DNA of the product, which is great. Thank you very much, Dominic. I thought a very good presentation, good introduction to the challenges, to the trends we're seeing in warehousing, and a good scene to set for the Very Group. So next on, I'm very excited to introduce the Very Group.
I'm Keith Howie. I'm Head of Delivery at the Very Group, working in the Logistics and Fulfillment business area.
Hi, I'm Simon Holland. I'm the Head of Technology for the Very Group in the Logistics and Fulfillment area.
Hi, I'm Colin Wooldridge, Head of Product within the Very Group, again working within the Logistics and Fulfillment area.
Hi everyone, I'm Gavin Watt. I'm the WMS Practice Lead at Flow Group.
We very much see ourselves as kind of a modern, digital, tech-driven retail business. But as you can see, we've actually got a long history stretching back over 100 years. I think the key thing to draw out from that history is the brave moves the company's made time and again to sort of reinvent itself. So, for instance, the e-commerce launch in the 1990s, really being on the front foot with that. Selling of the stores in 2005, so up to 2005 we had a large kind of store portfolio. That went in 2005, which is a brave move at the time. Moving forward a bit then, we launched our new Very brand in 2009, and at that stage we did a whole consolidation of a whole load of kind of legacy brands that we were very well known for. So again, a big sort of step forward in moving that with that Very brand, and certainly that kind of paved the way for our future. Then in 2015, we moved away from the catalogue. So having gone from store to catalogue, we then chose to move away from the catalogues. That was in 2015. So again, something we were very well known for in the UK. And then bringing us right up to date, 2020, we launched our new flagship fulfillment centre. Again, another great decision. That was about investing very heavily in our kind of fulfillment capability. So we like to think of ourselves as kind of reinventing ourselves all the time. And internally, we talk about reinventing retail. So that gives you kind of a bit of a sense of the history of the organisation. Just in terms of figures then, looking at what we do, so we've got a big customer base, and the key thing to draw out here that most of these customers have accounts with us. So not only are we a big retailer, but we're also one of the UK's leading financial services companies and have been for many years, again, being pioneers in that kind of world of retail finance. As you can see, we've got sales of over 2 billion, which represents around about 6% of the total UK online market. So it's a fairly big footprint we've got in the UK online market. And the key thing is around the brands we sell. So we sell across many different categories: fashion, electrics, home, etc. So we work with many kind of major brands: Nike, Adidas, Apple, Samsung, the names like that, sort of thing, household names. And we look to bring those to our customers. We are a purely online business now, so we don't have any other channels apart from our digital channels. We deliver about 50 million items a year. So at our kind of the peak of our peak, we're doing around about 25,000 orders in an hour. So we try and be able to kind of process that order as quickly as we can. So to kind of get from a customer placing an order, having a parcel ready for fulfillment, we can do it under 30 minutes, even at kind of peak trading time. That's a little bit about us in terms of figures. I'll hand over to Colin now to talk us through what our strategy is going forward.
Thank you, Simon. So our strategy is all about our customers. Everything we do supports our purpose of helping families get more out of life. With us being an online department store, we sell everything the family needs. So this includes school clothes for the kids, party dresses for mums, and garden sheds for the dads. So we sell over 2,000 big brands, from sports brands such as Adidas to designer brands such as Vivienne Westwood. We also have our own brand, V by Very, with a selection of affordable everyday items for our customers. There are 3 pillars to the strategy. and these are convenience, flexibility, and value. In terms of convenience, we are a one-stop shop for all the family, with curated choices for everyone and a great digital customer experience for our websites and apps. So to make this happen for our customers, we are adding more brands by our stockless fulfillment model. Also, our tech transformation remains a key priority and creates innovation within our customer journey. The second pillar is flexibility, and with the most flexible ways to pay for our customers, we have a wide range of options tailored to their needs. Through our Very Pay platform, we can make personalized offers to customers and tailor flexible payment for their specific products or occasions. Last pillar is value, and this is about creating more value for the family's money with great quality at affordable prices. We offer a competitive range with dynamic pricing capabilities. We're able to monitor the market and flex our pricing strategies accordingly. Our everyday collection offers great value and quality for our customers. Back over to Simon.
Brilliant, thanks, Colin. Right, so let's talk about our OC WMS work then, our initiative to implement that. So as a bit of background then, we were running some very old WMS systems, the old Mars system, medium hanging stock, a very old system dating back to the 1990s, running technology such as Oracle 8 database, so very old stuff. And from a technology perspective, what we were finding that it was very difficult to maintain, very difficult to update. It was also very closely coupled to other legacy systems we had in the organization. So not only did it sort of, constrain the warehouse in terms of how the warehouse could work, but it actually constrained the whole business in terms of how we could take and process orders. So there's a real technology need there for a kind of a shift change in how we worked. And then from an operational perspective, it really tied us to kind of a paper-based pick-pack activity. There was very much kind of batch focus. So in the morning, they'd print off a load of pick tours, they'd go and do the picking. So again, from an operational perspective, there was a real kind of dated kind of pick-pack operation in the warehouse as well, which was driven by how that technology worked. So what did we do? We decided already to invest a lot of money in our warehousing, both from an operational and tech perspective. We'd opened a new facility across over in Derby in the East Midlands. And I think then three kind of factors sort of came together that kind of drove this. We wanted to bring in-house our two-person operation, as we called it. That's our Wrexham warehouse. That had been run by a third party, but we very much wanted to bring that in, and take ownership to ensure the right outcome for TVG customers, the Very Group customers. There was that view for the technology that we really needed to shift the needle on technology. The other thing, interestingly, was the pandemic impact. We'd seen a shift in the type of product people bought from us. And what that had meant is we needed flexibility in our warehouse operations. And that system really didn't give us that flexibility. How it was tied into both our own systems, into meant we really couldn't be flexible in how we used the sites we had available to us. So what we needed was a new state-of-the-art WMS that gave us kind of the flexibility from a technology perspective, so a solution that can adapt as the business needs to adapt, facilitate a different way of working in the operation. So like I say, move away from that paper-based to a far more sort of automated modern ways of working. And also future-proof us. So as the business changes and grows, we can sort of adapt to whatever comes our way. So for instance, recently we needed to make some changes because of strikes. Again, something that would have taken us a long time previously, we could adapt to with this new kind of flexible system. So we went through an RFP process. We selected the Oracle Cloud WMS. The reasons we chose it, because genuinely cloud first, good strong integration with other products. It gave us that SaaS flexibility we were afterwards in terms of being able to use it not just in this site, but potentially look to use it in other sites as well. And it gave us that roadmap for kind of the product future, which meant we were kind of protected from, as we move forward with this. We looked to implement it with a kind of an MVP approach. So we wanted to, rather than go big bang, move the warehouse in one big move, we wanted to be able to do a kind of an MVP approach to try and test and learn as we go, because this is not only a technology change, but it's a big operational change. And rather than hit all of that in one go, we want to be able to do this in chunks effectively, so we could, say, test and learn as we go, sort of thing. The project kicked off in late 2021 with an ambition to be kind of in operation by the summer, July, August 22. That was a very big ambition at the time, to put in a whole new system and a whole new way of working in less than a year. Very ambitious. We followed that kind of agile approach to how we built and deployed it. We built an integration layer ourselves in AWS that integrates with our order management systems and our carrier management systems, all integrated then with our new Oracle WMS. And the great news is we actually went live successfully on the 12th of August. 2022. That was when we first started pushing through some orders through to our new WMS system in Wrexham, which is really good. So we hit our target date, which was fantastic, a great win for us as an organisation. And it allowed us to get that kind of that in before peak. It was really important for us to get that in before peak, so that we could test a few categories over peak and just see how, but like I say, both the technology and also the operation sort of worked over peak, sort of thing. So that's how we did it. In terms of what it's enabled, like I say, one of the key things here was the technology changed, but one of the big things that changed is how the operation works. So I say they used to have these kind of printed pick tours. That's given way to kind of HHT driven activity. We've been able to introduce sort of like next day pick and pack processes into Wrexham. We've been really flexible with the carriers. So we used to be tied to one carrier working out of Wrexham. Having the new system in place has allowed us to sort of flex that. We've now got 3 different carriers working out of our warehouse, all integrated with our OCWMS implementation, which is really good. Like I said, that's enabled us to really change how we see our fulfillment operation. We've been able to move stock around. We've been able to use our warehouses for different purposes and really allow each warehouse to focus on what it's good at. That's something we couldn't do before, which has been really good. So, I'll say it's given us that flexibility. It's also meant quite a change to the operation in terms of the physical layout. They were tied to, for instance, where the printers were. That's how, and it's a big site, the one in Wrexham. So again, being able to sort of use new technology has really enabled the site to start to be imaginative in how it's actually using the site. So, and again, we're testing and learning, we're adapting every week virtually as we go through that. So that's where we are at the moment. So we went live in August. We've had a number of separate implementations after that. So like I say, we traded through peak with the new WMS system. Then earlier this year, we've launched some new category products on there. So we've got diary booking now live. So we get sort of next day products. We also get sort of diary book products now coming in there. So yeah, it's been really successful for us in terms of doing that. What's next? We've got more work still to do. We've got to finish off the rollout of all the categories. So we've got some multi-part products, multi-box products that we need to get live on the WMS system. And then what we want to start doing is looking at returns. So we want to start using this system to process all our returns. And that's quite a big part of our business. And again, that'll be a real game changer for us in terms of being able to use this system for that. And then the other thing the other use case we're looking to adapt in the next kind of year or so is what we call pre-retail. So that's where we have, where we currently use a third party to do that pre-retail work for us. We want to start to build out on our own WMS system, the ability to be able to do that ourselves, and like I say, be able to bring some of that in-house. That gives a bit of a kind of a quick overview in terms of what we've done. I'll hand over to Colin now just to run through the benefits of what this work's done for us.
Thank you, Simon. So as Simon's mentioned, there's been lots of benefits so far on the back of implementing the new Oracle Cloud WMS. So there's been both customer and business benefits through the implementation. So the first big benefit we've seen is around customer service. So as we mentioned as part of the strategy for the very group, customer service and getting parcels quickly is important for our customers. So we've been able to increase the speed of those orders going through the warehouse and out to our customers. Also, the reliability is improved as well through having reduced broken promises and more accurate deliveries for our customers. So that's been a big tick in terms of customer service. Linked to that is our Net Promoter Score. So that basically is our measure of customer satisfaction. So we have actually seen an increase in our NPS. Lots of different factors contribute to this, but the implementing new Oracle WMS has improved our NPS for our customers, which is great news. Also, in terms of proposition, Simon mentioned we now work with a multi-carrier solution through our Wrexham warehouse. So what we've been able to do is make sure we have the most appropriate carriers to deliver our products. We have a wide range of different products within our Wrexham warehouse. Some are large and need specialist delivery operations. So we're able to select the most appropriate carrier for that specific product and get it to our customers quickly and effectively. And finally, cost control. Through a more efficient and effective working pattern within the warehouse and flow work through the warehouse, reduce the amount of manual work through paper, and implementing new handheld terminals has reduced the costs to operate within our XMDC. Also, having that flexibility to integrate with the carrier management system has reduced our carriage costs, which means we can actually offer our customers a more effective delivery option. So overall, it's been a great success of implementing new WMS.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Simon. A very good introduction to both the Very Group and the work you've been doing with Oracle, with Flow, to implement WMS, to improve the warehouse operations. I think particularly important things like the Net Promoter Score, things like customer satisfaction in a highly competitive industry are very much the basis on which you need to grow, the basis that scales the business. Thinking a bit particularly around the product, so you did talk a bit about the types of products. It's 50 million a year, 25,000 a day, significant volumes, but it's not your typical kind of baked beans on a pallet type operation, right? This is dealing with some significantly different or significant variation of goods. So you've got one man, you've got two man operations, you've probably got some valuable, some attractive goods, some things which require extra care, extra handling. Certainly you'll have value add activities in the warehouse. Could you tell me a bit about how the WMS supports the different type of operations you need in your warehouse?
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. Yeah, so you're right. We do sell a huge different range. So you could get something from as small as something that'll go through your letterbox to big sofas, great big outdoor furniture. So we've got a huge range, and that obviously impacts hugely how we then run our fulfillment operation. And what we sort of separated ourselves out into is sort of, and this is something that's been enabled by this project, is sort of an automated site and then a big item site, if you like. So. And out of that big item site, we're using 3 different carriers. Depending on then the size of the products, we work with the carrier management system. So the WMS system is integrated to the carrier management system. So based on the weights and dimensions of the product, based upon the address of the customer, based upon the delivery promise we've made to that customer, the warehouse management system interacts with the carrier management system. It selects, the carrier management system select what's the right carrier for that, and send back a label then through to the WMS system, so the WMS system can put the right label on the product that's going to make that carried by the right carrier to our customer to the date they need it, sort of thing. So yeah, that was one of the key challenges for us, integrating this with that carrier management system, sort of thing. So but it's also one of the big benefits we've had, because
absolutely
we've been able to sort of really change how that operation works. Like I say, it was very, very much tied to one carrier and one way of working. We've been really able to sort of change the whole site, and that's given the site challenges in terms of how it then learns to work in the new ways. But it's been fantastic in terms of the business flexibility it's been able to give us.
Yeah, it gives you more options then on delivery, gives you more options to get goods to customers quicker, probably better routes, and you're able to rank and score carriers. You're less reliant on a source of failure. So it sounds important.
Absolutely, and it means it's opened up a whole conversation for us now around different sets of delivery options we can do that we simply couldn't have done before. So it enables a whole different conversation. Certainly from a technology point of view, we can have conversations about delivering change much quicker. A carrier change before would have taken us months and months. Now we talk about days and weeks.
Which is fantastic, and I think one of the advantages of deploying a cloud-based system that offers that integration, that offers that kind of scalability and flexibility in the way it's able to connect.
Absolutely, and it's interesting because when we selected Oracle WMS, one of the key things was to give us that flexibility, and it's been the thing that we've really been able to use in the first 6 months of operation. And the interesting thing is that the business have changed their mind a few times on actually what the key priority is. But what's been great is we've been able to quickly change the plan and adapt to that need, so which has been really good. And the benefit, the business have been really appreciative of the flexibility this has given us.
Thank you for that. Thinking about something that's less flexible, your customers potentially. We know the demand-driven pressure in the retail industry particularly. We know customers are expecting shorter lead times, faster delivery. You say you've moved to next day, potentially even pressures to move to same day delivery. Can you tell me what that's done in terms of shaping the warehouse from an operations perspective, but also what the system then provides? to allow you to handle that?
Yeah, I think one of the key things for our customers, as you say, is speed and also optionality around deliveries, especially in terms of large items. Often customers need to be at home, so what they want to be able to do is book a date so they can receive the delivery on the day of their choice. And what we've been able to implement is diary booking, as Simon mentioned earlier. We're able to offer customers a delivery slot. And what will happen is the carrier will actually contact the customer and offer a 2-hour window for when that item will be delivered. So both the accuracy of when it's going to be delivered and the speed is important to them. And we are actually also able to offer express and next day delivery on large items as well. So again, the flexibility of the system has enabled that.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned a very important point there. When we talk about efficiency, we tend to focus more on time, we tend to focus more on speed, less on accuracy, but certainly both are integral for the smooth running of the business.
Yes, absolutely. And broken promises is a key measure for our business. So what we do is we break down the delivery journey throughout from order placement to delivery, and we measure really accurately all different milestones within that order's journey. So the process through the warehouse, when it's being picked, when it's being packed, when it's being dispatched, when it's being handed over to the carrier. And through the visibility we get within the warehouse management system, we can track all those key milestones and make sure that orders are flowing through the system effectively and getting to our customers on time. So we have seen a benefit in terms of being able to measure that and get those orders to our customers quickly and both accurately as well.
Brilliant. And I guess that comes back again to this Net Promoter Score, comes back to the improvement and the propositions you're able to offer for customers and the competitiveness of the business. It's great to hear the role that the Oracle Cloud WMS plays within that picture. Changing track a bit to talk about the warehouse at its peak. So we've talked about process automation, how that improves efficiencies, but Very Group obviously operates quite a heavy volume at Christmas. So you have your peak, you will have a lot of new people coming into the warehouse, probably a mix of experience, some maybe even brand new to the system or brand new to a warehouse. How do those people, or how does the Oracle Cloud WMS play a role in onboarding?
One of the things that the Oracle WMS has really helped with is certainly the speed of being able to induct those new employees, especially casual employees. So again, if we go back to the days of our legacy systems where it's not necessarily an intuitive system, obviously it's paper-based, etc. It would take new employees a fair amount of time to come up to speed. I think with a new system, for anybody who is au fait with working with a WMS, it's within the day they are productive and operational. For somebody who is actually completely new off the street, again, we're talking days. You know, it's within days up to a week. Somebody would be fully operational, fully productive, and in role, which makes a massive, massive difference, especially as you say at peak, where you're bringing in huge volumes of people that need to be up to speed very, very quickly for a short period of time. Makes a massive, massive difference.
Thank you, Keith. Yeah, and I assume so then the scalability, both the scalability, the user friendliness of the system becoming integral points. Have you used within Oracle Cloud WMS certain functions, features to make that process, the onboarding process, easier, or to make warehouse operations more easier? Things like intelligent prompting within the RF, within the mobile GUM.
Certainly one of the things we have adopted widely is the use of the HHT terminals to drive the operation on site sort of thing. So, and that's been hugely well received by the users, hugely well received by the kind of the whole operation in terms of the flexibility it gives them. I mean, the feedback we get from the users is that they really like the system. And bear in mind, like Keith just mentioned, it was a very old system they had before, so they really like this new system. And that plays into things like staff retention then and things like that, where actually that's a really important thing for us, you know, to in the kind of modern world we live in, to be able to hold on to our good people is really important. But yeah, we have seen, you know, a real kind of good adoption by the users in the warehouse, and I can't think of a particular feature, but certainly the HHT guns has really transformed the way that operation works.
Brilliant, good to hear. And so just changing track a little bit, thinking about analytics, thinking about what the system provides you in terms of data. So we all know the importance of data in driving better decisions, maybe forecasting, predictive analytics. Could you tell me a bit about how Very Group are using the analytics from the WMS to improve operations?
Yes, we've got a suite of reports now built within the WMS. One of the key ones is around the order progression, order visibility. So as soon as the orders drop into the warehouse management system, we've got a nice reporting suite that tells the status of the orders and also when they're due. So that helps planning in terms of when orders need to be picked. As we've mentioned, we have some diary bookings, so we have some forward view of orders. So it means that we can plan the labour accordingly, plan the picking tasks, plan the replenishment, and make sure it's all effective in terms of flowing the orders through the warehouse. So there's been a good suite of reports available to the users within the warehouse.
That's very good. And I assume some reports are used by users, some are more for a management view, but you're getting the data out of the WMS that enables you to make better decisions about how to look tomorrow, or in 6 months' time. Fantastic.
And I think the key thing there is, again, we're scratching the surface. So I think you're given to an operation that previously had limited visibility of anything, a huge amount of data. So it's actually controlling the amount of data and the amount of reports that you give them, so you don't overwhelm them.
Absolutely.
Because, again, you're moving from a very manual site, fully automated, with just a plethora of information, which can be quite overwhelming, obviously. So it's about managing the delivery of that data to them as well.
Yeah.
The capabilities are clearly huge and exciting for the operation of what they actually can do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you raise an important point about not overloading people with data, but making sure you're using it in a kind of progressive way, in a structured way. So you don't want to go from a paper-based to a fully digitized and fully kind of future-proofed operation on day one. It's a move, it's a progression. That's very much true. And then thinking about that kind of move and progression, obviously you're coming from paper-based, you're coming into systems. You've been quite an innovative business over time, but I'd quite like to talk about where you see it going next for Very Group.
Yeah, so I think, like I mentioned, we've got the MVP we rolled out. We're still building on, so we've got the final few categories to roll out. So with the more complex product types like multi SKU, multi-box, multi-part products, where how we sell it and how we then fulfill it can vary, sort of thing. We've got that due to roll out by the end of July. We've then got returns, so we're looking to use this system to process all our customer returns. And that will be for all sizes of products. So that's an interesting development for us. And then, like I said, we've got pre-retail as a big problem area for us. And we think this solution can actually really help us and give us a real sort of better way of handling that kind of pre-retail side of it. I think beyond that, what the interesting things, I guess, will be looking at how AI can perhaps drive sort of an even more efficient operational and driving down those operational costs further and helping us achieve a better customer outcome sort of thing in terms of those broken promises, etc. I think that's a really interesting area for us, that kind of AI integration. So I think that's probably the most interesting from a tech perspective we're looking at in terms of, what can that help us do, both from, like I say, from an operational perspective, but also from a customer perspective as well, sort of thing. So that'll be a one we'll be keen to get into soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you and many others, and I know Oracle are doing a lot of work putting machine learning, putting AI on top of products to help with that, to help drive better decisions, to help kind of forecast, predict, and certainly to learn from the massive data that we've talked about, is available. So yeah, sounds very good. So just kind of one more topic I'd like to cover is the implementation. So we've talked just then about kind of where you are in that phase. And you mentioned in the presentation a couple of challenges, a couple of things that have been difficult or have been overcome for the business. So onboarding a new system, coming from paper-based processes into systemized processes. Could you tell us a bit about the core challenges that you see?
Yeah, so I think there's been many challenges, and I think Simon touched on quite a few of them in the opening section. If we look at it, when we set out on this journey, we had a plan, we had a very clear view as to how we were going to implement the OCWMS. And we've had to adapt that plan. So it's something that, as the head of delivery, accountable for the on-time delivery, it's been quite uncomfortable. But actually, what it's allowed us to do is to deliver huge amounts of business benefit that we hadn't foreseen at the outset of implementing this product. So it's meant that our actual overall delivery times have moved to the right. So they have been extended, but a huge benefit to the organization. Now, actually, where that has caused us some issues is the type of products that the operation is now dealing with. So they've had to really adapt their ways of working from, as Colin has talked to, dealing with large diary booked items is one way of working that the operation has been very used to for many years. Changing to next day delivery on smaller items has been a huge learning curve for them, and it is something that did catch us out. So actually, one of the key areas, we've talked about the amount of data and MI that you can get out of the system. We developed and devised the MI that we thought was required for the operation. Actually, as we moved into the peak period of operation, what we quite quickly identified was the MI that we were delivering to the operation just wasn't sufficient for the type of products and the type of operation that they were now having to adapt to. So fortunately, with the help of our Flow colleagues, we were able to very quickly swarm around the issues, develop some new MI reports very quickly, which allowed us to get the operation back on track, give them the visibility of the product flow, the order flow, etc., that was causing a huge backlog in the operation. So I think the beauty for us of the flexibility of the product has caused us issues as well. I think, again, if we go back to ensuring that you can walk before you start to run, I think we potentially got a little bit blasé about how good we were at delivering the outcomes for the operation. But we've learned from it, and as we've moved forward with our subsequent deployments of the product, we've certainly taken a much more cautious and measured approach. We've not seen the big issues that we had from our first deployment, which is great news, and I'm sure we will continue to learn and develop as we go as well.
Absolutely, and I guess within that first implementation, there was a strategy change, an operational change, and a tech change. So it was a disruptive time, you'd expect.
Absolutely, and I think one of the things that we could never lose sight of is we weren't deploying this to a greenfield site. This is an operational site that we had to fit around and work around, and obviously, as we keep stressing, the change is such a huge leap from where the operation was working to where they are, that it could be very easy to overwhelm them, which is why, again, as Simon mentioned in the opening section, we took very much an MVP approach. So our intention was to get something live as quickly as possible to allow the operation to get comfortable and start to realize benefit, but it needed to be relatively simple and straightforward for them to start working with. So it was as Simon said, we're going to be doing the more complex, multi-part, multi-item products. So it was very straightforward, simple products that we initially went live with, allowing the operation to get comfortable, and then we've continued to iterate.
Yep.
And what we've seen is the benefits of that iterative approach have, as I've already said, allowed us to change our plan, change our approach, as well as deal with challenges as we've gone. So it was absolutely the right approach for us as an organisation.
Thanks, Keith.
Actually, something I'd add to that is there's obviously, as you can imagine, with implementation of this size and complexity, there has been quite a few kind of bugs, but I'd say there's been no kind of priority one issues that we've had to face into. We've never the operation hasn't ever kind of stopped in this. And actually what's been impressive is the speed at which we've been able to resolve any of those issues sort of thing. So we now look at any issue we get we would normally have it solved within an hour or so, basically, which is really good. Again, I think the previous technology we had, you saw outages that would last sort of quite a long period of time. We simply haven't faced into that, even with the complexity of what we've done. We've not seen any kind of big priority one issues. So I think it's safe to say that even though we've had some issues, our customers won't have been impacted by any of those.
Which is the important part, is that the customer doesn't feel the impact, and that you're able to move forward. You mentioned coming from obviously the legacy tech and issues taking a lot longer to resolve. Was that issues with just finding the skills? Was it issues with the tech platform, the way it integrated, or?
Absolutely, we had all of those issues, if you like. From a skills perspective, then yes, the skills to maintain the old system were very few and far between. We had a guy that retired that we used to have to keep on a retainer just in case it went wrong. We've been able to move away from having to do that kind of thing. And yeah, the difficulty in changing it, it was so kind of closely coupled with all of our systems that what we'd find is, a change in the warehouse system would have then a knock-on effect on how we took the orders. Likewise, we'd find that a change in the order taking system suddenly stopped the warehouse working. So it was a real kind of millstone for us in terms of that ability to support it. And then, of course, any change we wanted to do, we simply couldn't, we couldn't really support doing that sort of thing. So this has been a great benefit to the operation in terms of they've seen a sea change in not only they've got a new system, but where we have to react to a change, we can do that at pace now, which they just never saw before.
Thanks, Colin. Then, so yeah, absolutely. With cloud, you've got that benefit of 4 deployments per year. So again, going back to Dominic's part earlier, we talked very much about the benefit of cloud, the ease of deployment, the evolution of the system over time, the way that customers interact with the evolution of the system, so through the customer advisory board, through special interest groups. That certainly helps you stay on the platform that supports you now and in the future.
Absolutely, that's a big part for us of why we chose this one, because of that. I say it gives us that sustainability of this solution for a long time. From our perspective, we're only going to see the kind of the growth of the footprint in our organisation of what this is going to do for us.
Absolutely, yeah. And going back to your slide, this is the ground for growth, right? This is the basis now for the growth of the business.
Yeah,
it's great. It was mentioned in the presentation that you insourced actually control of this warehouse as part of this change. Could you tell me a bit more about the reasons for that and what it's given you in terms of control, perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. We took it, the whole site and all the people on from the third party. I think the thinking is, and it's a thinking that kind of is throughout the whole of the Very Group, is where we want to differentiate ourselves from our competitors. It's important that we kind of take the ownership of the kind of the solutions and everything that's in place there. So be that from a tech perspective, where we say actually we want to make sure that we're building out where we want to be the kind of the like I say, differentiate ourselves, or simply with our Oracle WMS, for instance, we're not experts in WMS, so we simply bought that package. But certainly it's been a kind of a key company kind of driver in the last few years. And yeah, so we did buy back the site and all the people from the third party, and we're running that now as a Very Group operation. I think what we see is we're better off to work with partners that are experts in certain things rather than just look to a service provider to give the whole service away.
Absolutely. And I think that leads in nicely. So thinking about partners and thinking about your experience then working with Flow Group for the implementation of the Oracle Cloud WMS.
So I think if we look at partners, I think the key thing for us is, you can either go with a systems integrator or an integration partner. And for us, we absolutely needed an integration partner. This isn't something we could just pick up and deliver on your own. But it's key that you've got the right partner working alongside you, not only that understands the technology, but is also able to quickly understand the business priorities and ultimately our end goal. Now, where this has, I guess, really worked for us has been the ability, as we've talked about, the ability to flex the plan and change direction to solve specific business problems and challenges, as they've arisen. And that's only been possible due to the incremental delivery plan and approach, and also the close working relationship that we've had with Flow. As we said, this isn't a greenfield site. We have been reacting to business priorities, which change quickly, they change frequently, and we've had to adapt. And with the support of Flow, we've been able to deliver the right outcomes for the operation at the times when they've needed it. And this again is why I'm saying it's more an integration partner, because Flow have been involved in those discussions. They've been helping us to solve the problems and agree the solutions rather than, I guess, waiting on instruction from us. And that's been really, really powerful. So it's something we've very much appreciated, as they've helped to shape how we've gone forward with this. I don't know, Gavin, I'm sure you've got a view on that.
Yeah, and it's great to hear, Keith, that from your side it's gone well. I think from our side, it's been great working with the very team, because having that kind of digital, more agile, responsive methodology that you've implemented from your side is a really good fit with the Flow pathway, with our delivery methodology, which is no longer a kind of traditional waterfall where we have a very regimented plan and we have to do things in a certain sequence. So being able to work with a client with a clear view of a prioritized requirements list, and being able to break the work into sprint cycles and make sure we've actually got some benefit being delivered regularly, rather than a big drop of everything at the end with an old-fashioned WMS project implementation plan. I think it's worked really well together on that, because we have been able to adapt to the changes that you're seeing in your market with your customers. So yeah, I think it's a good approach that is probably, hopefully, our listening audience should really consider, rather than the traditional big bang waterfall projects.
Thank you all for joining this webinar today with Flow, Oracle and the Very Group, focused on Oracle Cloud WMS and the experience of Very Group using and implementing Oracle Cloud with Flow. My thanks goes out to Keith, to Simon, to Colin from Very Group, to Gavin Watt from Flow, to Dominic Regan from Oracle, and we thank you for joining us online.